Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we learn to overcome adversity, depict fact versus fiction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Before we hop into today's episodes, as you noticed from last week's, we have finally started a Patreon account. And guys, this is for all my wannabe trainers, my wannabe fitness coaches, my current gym owners, anybody looking to make fitness their business lifestyle, want to learn how to become a trainer, want to be a better trainer. I'm going to break down into the nitty gritty of how to be successful. I am here for you guys, and I look forward to it. But without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Jaclyn. Jaclyn, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on today, and welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I am very intrigued about, one, this product you came up with, and two, it's so, I don't even want to spoil anything. I'm just going to be honest, because it is such an interesting, specific niche product. It's tons of fun to talk about. And for those people that really need this and fit that niche, this is going to change your world. And that's what I gathered from the first 2 minutes of even talking to you.
Okay.
So let's find out a little bit about you. First, how did you get to where you are now from wanting to even come up with this planner that you're doing? Take us back.
Okay, so my name is Jaclyn. I have been a professional graphic designer for about 10 years. I have 10 years of experience in the print and design industry. In the spring of 2020, so I had my kids really quickly. I want to preface this by saying my oldest is 6 years old and my youngest is 1. So I had 5 kids in 5 years, or 4 kids in 5 years. So in the spring of 2020, this was after the birth of my daughter, my 4th child. And it was at the height, by the way, of a global pandemic. Where no one knew what COVID was yet, and everyone was kind of panicking, and it was really difficult to get non-emergent healthcare. I found myself very unwell. I was suffering daily with a constellation of non-specific symptoms. I had chronic fatigue, unexplained muscle and joint pain. I was having mood dysregulation, hair loss, digestive distress, lots of unpleasant things, but nothing that was life-threatening, just really uncomfortable. So I went to see my doctor, and after a bunch of tests, it was revealed that I have a chronic thyroid autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's disease. And for people who don't know what autoimmune is, essentially it just means that my body, I have an overactive immune system, and my body attacks my healthy thyroid tissue as if it's a foreign invader, like a virus or bacteria. So I got my diagnosis, and you would think that would have been devastating because I was 26 years old at the time, and it was a chronic disease. I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. I take a medication that I'm going to have to take daily for probably the rest of my life, unless something drastic changes. And you would think that would be devastating, but it was actually kind of a relief, because for a long time it was easy to downplay my symptoms because they weren't life-threatening, and they were the kind of symptoms that, especially as you're pregnant and having kids, a lot of people will tell you, well, of course you're tired. You have 4 kids. Right? And it's fair enough. I'm tired. I've got 4 kids. But I knew that it wasn't having 4 kids, especially when my daughter started sleeping through the night and I wasn't having disrupted sleep anymore, that having 4 kids didn't justify going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, waking up at 8 o'clock and still feeling exhausted, like I hadn't slept at all. It was very strange. I would have mid-afternoon slumps, sort of around 1 o'clock. I would have a period of time where I literally just couldn't keep my eyes open. I would just pass out on the couch. So I could not stay awake. And it didn't feel like the typical sort of coffee mom tiredness that people talk about. when you have lots of kids. But so getting a diagnosis actually was really validating because it meant there was actually something wrong with my body and I wasn't just imagining it and I wasn't just weak. But I am a lifelong paper person. I'm a graphic designer, like I said, and I used a paper planner daily anyway. And I couldn't find a daily planner that was, most planner companies, they're focused on productivity, right? Their whole goal is to make you productive, to help you smash your goals or crush your goals or whatever you want to call it. But there are precious few diaries or planners, day planners that are more interested in taking care of you and your holistic wellness and how you're feeling. And I did find a few, but nothing that was as comprehensive as I wanted. So as a graphic designer, I sort of went back into my software and sort of just designed what I wanted as a dream planner. I didn't really think about what would be commercial. I didn't really think about what other people might want. I really just made the planner that I would love to buy on the shelf if I could.
I
And
need to stop you here for a second because I'm just
okay.
very curious. What made you in the first place feel like you needed a planner? Like, why was that your first go-to from your diagnosis?
Well, it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't my first go-to because I was hoping when I was diagnosed that that would lead to some form of treatment, right? So if you get any diagnosis, let's say you were diagnosed with cancer, you wouldn't be told by your doctor, you have cancer, and then just sent home and be like, good luck, right? You would immediately go into conversations about treatments, about radiology, about different medications you could try. But for me, after I got my diagnosis, firstly, not a single doctor I've seen to this day can tell me why I have an autoimmune disease. Like, is it a lifestyle thing? Is it just genetic lottery? Like, no one really seems to know. And I don't blame them for not knowing. There's a lot we don't know about the human body, but no one can explain why I got sick. All my labs look good now that I'm medicated. I take a medication every morning, and now every time I get my blood work done, which is about every 6 months, everything looks normal. Everything looks where it should be. Like, it looks like my thyroid is well managed. But still, after all of that, I was still having all these symptoms, right? I was still having all these unpleasant symptoms. I still didn't feel like myself in my own body. So I did what any person would do at the time, because all my doctors told me, well, there's nothing more we can do for you because your disease is well managed. So I went to other people. I just tried to find as many other people with Hashimoto's as I could who were also dealing with symptoms even after their thyroids were managed. And a lot of them said there are diet and lifestyle modifications that you can make that should alleviate some of your symptoms and reduce your inflammation. So I started by reducing my diet into a more paleo style diet. So I cut out a lot of gluten. I don't eat a lot of dairy anymore. I try to stay away from certain food groups that tend to flare me up in terms of symptoms. I also made going to bed on time really important. Like, I really need to get like a full 8 hours, or I do start noticing a flare up of symptoms, especially in my joints. I take a regimen of supplements as well as my actual medication to sort of, especially iron. I'm chronically low on iron and vitamin D, which I think is true for most people actually. But
Yeah, so many
yeah,
people.
yeah, but it's more pronounced for me, I guess. Last time I got my blood work done, my B12 was also dangerously low, so I had to take B12 shots for a while too. But
Well, paleo, I'm guessing you're not eating a lot of meat products.
no, I eat plenty of meat on paleo.
Oh, really? So
Yeah,
you're still
no,
eating meat and still low on B12?
yeah. No, I
Crazy.
don't. I just don't think my body doesn't manage nutrients very well, I guess. Like, I take in nutrients, but my body doesn't, like, I don't have an explanation for why. Because I eat a healthy diet, but I'm deficient on a lot of things sometimes. So, but anyway, I tried implementing all these diet and lifestyle changes. But I was having a really hard time trying to figure out if any of them were working, because from month to month, I don't know if you've ever tried this. Have you ever tried cutting something out of your diet like dairy or gluten, like to see how you would feel?
I am super lactose intolerant,
Oh yeah. Okay.
and I gotta tell you, coming from an Italian family, cutting out pizza is nearly impossible.
That's a problem. Oh yeah, the dairy-free cheese options too are all terrible. I've
Oh,
never seen a good one.
nothing comes. It was easy to cut out ice cream. It was easy to cut
Yeah.
out milk in
Oh,
general.
speak for yourself. It wasn't for me.
I didn't eat it for 20 years. So,
Yeah.
but your cheeses, like
Yeah.
it's your soft cheeses that have lactose, not your hard cheeses. And
Yeah.
it's been very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and the alternatives are just all terrible. I've tried them all and they're all terrible.
I'm going to be honest. I'm sure you're on the same page as I am and as most people. It's like, yeah, I shouldn't have that, but
Yeah.
today's worth the pain.
So true.
This is the
It's like
best pizza we can find in New York right now,
yeah.
and I'm gonna eat this.
Like a calculation every day. Like I know this is gonna like really not feel good in 30 minutes, but I'm gonna do it.
I wish it was just 30 minutes. It's 24 hours of death,
Oh no.
but it's
I
still
know
worth it.
for me the gut stuff is really quick, but then all kinds of other stuff happens later. Like my joints flare up later and I get the headaches and all kinds of other things. But yeah, I was trying to track from month to month whether or not these things that I was doing were actually working because objectively, when people are just like, oh yeah, just cut it out for a while and just see how you feel. And I was like, okay, but like I was doing lots of different things and I wasn't sure which ones were actually working and which ones weren't. So I wanted to keep some actual data. So what I started to do was tracking everything. So I tracked what I was eating, I tracked how much I was sleeping, my medications, my supplements, my mood, my symptoms. I started tracking it all from month to month, and that was really valuable data for me. But I was using 6 or 7 notebooks to track all of this, and it just became chaotic. It was really difficult to compare all of these things at the same time and figure out like sort out patterns, like, oh, I ate a lot of gluten that week and then I started feeling like this, right?
And I gotta say, like, we did an episode on pre and post menopause with Beth, and I
Okay.
recommend people going back to that one. But she said something very similar to you just said, where it was she noticed symptom flare ups when she started logging for certain foods. So she was able to hop back
Mm-hmm.
and look at it and say, all right, these specific foods is what's causing making my menopause symptoms worse. So if I take
Mm-hmm.
them out, I should avoid the hot flashes. And that's kind of what you're saying now with the Hashimoto's, where it's like, all right, these specific lifestyle changes as far as diet, exercise, mental, physical health, whatever it is, this triggers it. And you can only notice that because us as humans are really bad at picking up patterns. We think we're great
Yeah.
at it, but we're
Yeah.
horrible at it.
I
So when
know.
you start logging, you can actually see the difference and backtrack and be like, wow, I never would have guessed that.
It was even like it was even like validation because I don't when I was having a bad day, your pain is so real. Like pain, you can't deny it. When you're in pain, it's the realest thing in your life. Like but then on good days, I would question how bad it really was. I would be like, well, I mean, did I really feel like that day? Was it really that bad? Like I would doubt myself that I had actually been feeling that bad that day. So when I started writing it down, it was a lot easier to recognize the patterns, like, oh yeah, I had a flare up of, joint pain here from this day to this day. I actually started noticing you won't be able to relate to this at all. But women, for our hormonal profile, goes up and down as well. So I did actually notice that some of my symptoms were also related to what time of the month it was for me hormonally. I would get symptoms related to what week of the month I was in terms of like ovulating week, menstruating week. Like it's different every week, your hormonal profile, and some of my symptoms were related to that, which everybody knows, right? Everybody knows that in the back of your head, like the whole PMS thing, that women are more emotional around your time of the month. Like that is an actual symptom actually related to your whole hormonal profile. It's not just something being like, oh, women are just crazy for 1 week of the month. Like, no, there's something actually physiologically happening to women that makes them more sensitive to negative emotion in that week, and there's a biological reason for it. So
Every man in a relationship can relate.
Yeah, exactly.
We all know, and we're just going to say it in the back of our heads because if we say it out loud, we're going to go in
Don't
the
say it out
doghouse.
loud. How dare you? Do not. Yeah, but it was really valuable to me to be keeping all of this information, but it just wasn't tenable to do it in lots of different books. So like I said, I basically just sat down at my desk and I was like, well, if I were creating what I would want in a dream planner, what would it include? And I basically just made it.
Yeah, and I want to talk about something specifically put in the planner, which you have your 8 dimensions of wellness. And I know for a lot of people, we were talking a little pre-show, but for me, it's like, all right, maybe there's 3, 4, 5, and you're like, there's 8. So
Yeah.
I didn't even listen to all of them that we are talking about. So I'm very
Okay.
curious to dive into these different dimensions of wellness and how we can help track it if we had a planner in our lives or something like that, and just be mindful of it. But before we hop
Okay.
into that, we're just going to grab a quick word from our sponsor and we'll be right back. Thank you to our sponsor, Hydronique Hydration Electrolyte Powder Drink Packets. Started in the midst of the pandemic, the founder of Hydronique Hydration, a frontline healthcare worker, started developing constant headaches. A landmark research study published early during the pandemic showed that 81% of frontline healthcare workers developed new headaches, mainly because of their PPE, which prevented them from eating and drinking properly while on the job. He would leave work tired, dehydrated, and burnt out. The founder looked for a healthy drink with all the necessary vitamins and minerals, but with no sugar. But most powdered drinks in the market have a ton of sugar and caffeine. That's why he created Hydronique Hydration, sugar-free, plant-based, antioxidant-rich electrolyte powder packets for daily use, containing all essential vitamins and minerals with a refreshing taste. Their product contains elderberry, which is known to have immune-boosting properties, especially during the cold and flu season. Hydronique Hydration electrolyte powders can also fit in your bag or suitcase when traveling and are super convenient just to carry around and have with you day to day. So if you're having trouble with eating and drinking healthy during your busy day and want a great alternative to other high sugar hydration companies, then give Hydronique Hydration a try. There are 30 of these great electrolyte powder packets in a pouch, perfect for a 1-month supply. You can visit www.hydroniquehydration.com. That's www.hydronique hydration.com. It's the word hydration and unique mashed together. Or search Hydronique Hydration on Amazon, where they're offering a $10 discount coupon at checkout. Anyway, guys, links in the bio. Please go check them out. Thank you again to our sponsor, Hydronique Hydration. I drink these packets almost every single day. They also have a ton of great vitamins and nutrients in them, including vitamin C, the elderberry mentioned, magnesium, and zinc. So even if you have a little night out with too many drinks, or you had a really good workout, because I hope that's the reason, grab one of these packets today, pick it up. Now back to the show. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. We're going to dive right into the 8 dimensions of wellness. So without further ado, Jaclyn, give us number 1.
Okay, so the first dimension, and I wouldn't say that any other dimension is more important than any of the others, except for this one. This is the one exception. And that's spiritual wellness, because there's nothing that can sink you faster than just losing hope and losing direction in your life. Like if you just don't have a reason to do anything, it's really easy to slip into nihilism. So your spiritual wellness I would say is the most important one. But for different people, it's going to look different. Like for me, I am a very traditional Christian. So for me, my spiritual wellness is very much tied to my faith life. But other people are more spiritual in other ways, like lots people find spiritual wellness in a lot of different ways. But the most important thing is that it's about a connection with something larger than yourself and defining a set of beliefs and values that give you a sense of meaning in your life and help you create a direction for where you want to go. Like
Interesting.
it's a value structure. It's about having a value structure. You know, how do you determine what's a good thing for you to do and what's a bad thing for you to do? That's your spiritual wellness will define that for you. So for me, it's about my faith, right? It's about what God requires of believers. That's how I sort out what's a good thing for me to do and what's a bad thing for me to do. But other people see it differently.
I'm gonna just bring up one little point real quick on this one because it's very interesting to pick this as number one, and I don't blame you, but it just having psychology. I'm big into psychology, so if
Okay.
you just have the understanding that you like what's going on now is all that's a matter and importance, it's a big downer on your emotional state and emotional well-being, and it puts into your mind, oh, why would I do anything because this is all I have. Whereas on the flip
Mm-hmm.
side of it, if you had something, whether it's religion, like even take Christianity for example, it's that's now bigger than you. So now you have a
Yeah.
reasoning to push and drive further because you know there's something bigger. And that doesn't have to be religion. It can be
Oh.
anything that you just take as being bigger than yourself. So people get lost in the, well, I'm not super religious. Well, it's not about that. It's about
Mm-hmm.
just having something that's bigger than you that gives you that drive when you wake up in the morning. And you're like, I need to do this because of this in my life that's gonna benefit the world in a whole. Like it's bigger than myself is the
Mm-hmm.
best way to put it
You
into
need to
terminology.
have a set of guiding principles. Like how else do you navigate life if you can't judge what's a good thing and what's a bad thing? You know, like whether or not your guiding principles are just basically like there are some people who just use reason as their guiding principles, you know? Fine. Whatever works for you. Like I'm not here to judge you. Personally, for me, I believe the only way to have a healthy spiritual life is to have a relationship with God, but that's because I'm a Christian and I wouldn't be a Christian if I thought anything else, right? So I mean, don't take that as a judgment on anything else. That's just it's the core of my person. So I couldn't be who I am and think anything else. So I don't recommend anything else to other people too. Like I'm in the wellness space, so trust me, I get plenty of people like, "Oh, do you mess with tarot? Like, what about crystals?" And it's like there are a lot of people in the wellness space who put a lot of faith into things like astrology and stuff like that. And that's not me because I don't think that's where meaning comes from. But my only point here is that you need to have something, right? You need to have something that gives you a set of defining principles, or you can't navigate life.
Exactly. I think we're both on the exact same page. All right, what's number two? What do we got?
Okay, number two. This is your domain, physical wellness.
I know
And
nothing
when
about
people
it.
right now, you're a stranger you've never met.
Nope.
But physical wellness is what everybody talks about when they talk about health. You know, like physical wellness is moving your body and eating well and making sure you're properly hydrated and getting enough sleep. Like every time people talk about health and wellness, they're almost always just talking about physical wellness. But I define it as just an attitude of personal stewardship with regards to the care and attention that you show your own body. So you're taking care of your body as if it's something worth taking care of, you know, like Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson, but he says something great where he says, you should take care of yourself as if you're someone that you loved that you were taking care of, right? Like people don't, there's a statistic I read one time that blew me away, and that's that more people are more likely to fill and administer their prescriptions for their pets correctly than they are for themselves. Did you know that?
I'm not shocked.
I know it's something that seems insane, but you totally believe it because people they care a lot for their pets. They care a lot for the people around them too. Like you're really careful with how you care about with how you care for your kids or how you care for your spouse. But you're maybe a lot less careful with how you care for your own body. So
This is
physical
something we
wellness
talk
is
about
just
all the
about,
time
yeah,
because, like, if I don't take care of me, if I don't make myself a priority, how the heck am I going to take care of anybody else?
yeah, exactly. And you won't be able to either. Like there's a quote in the planner. It's a really popular quote in wellness where If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. Like if you don't take care of yourself, you will be forced to eventually. It's just a question of when.
Yeah, it's a tax you're putting on your body if you don't take care of your physical health. Every
Yeah.
time you get rid of something inside that physical realm, whether it's not sleeping enough, not drinking enough water, having a bad diet, not exercising at the gym, every one of those becomes this tax, which means that the next time you try to go do something, every task ahead of you now becomes harder to do and
Yeah.
drags you down. Whereas if
You'll
you
never get away with it. People think they
ever,
get away with it. You'll never get away with it.
it will always catch up. And
It's
some
just a
people, it's
question
like this.
of when the bomb explodes, because it will
Yeah.
eventually.
I favorite one, but go ahead. What's number 3? What do we got?
Okay, so number 3 is intellectual wellness. So it's about developing your knowledge and your skills and understanding diverse points of view and strengthening your overall cognitive function, because as you get older, that does decline. So you do that sort of automatically when you're in school or when you're in university and stuff like that. You're constantly thinking and being challenged. But when you stop doing those things and you sort of move into your more traditional life, like me, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm a homeschooling mama, I am a graphic designer, a freelancer, but you get used to the swing of things for yourself, and you don't challenge yourself with things that are sort of out of your wheelhouse anymore very much, that you're not forced to anymore because it's not part of your job, because you specialize. That's what we do as adults. When we go from high school, it's sort of a broad range of knowledge. Then we're going to college, and then we're specializing into a niche. And then we go to what we're actually doing every day, and that's even more specialized, right? So the pipeline for humans as we move into our purpose is sort of specializing. We niche, and then we niche, and then we niche, right?
Yeah.
But when you're niche down like that, it's great for your daily life because you become an expert in what you're doing, but you also sort of limit yourself to learning new things. So it's just about taking some time to intentionally go out and learn about new things. So an easy way to do that would just be about reading lots of diverse books. Like there's so many ways to do that on like Skillshare and even podcasts and like YouTube. There's so many ways to learn new skills. Or like for me, a big thing for me is I just listen to a ton of podcasts from people that maybe I wouldn't necessarily agree with, because I want to know what other people are saying, right?
I'm gonna
You want to expose yourself to as
I got
many diverse
something.
opinions as possible. Oh, really? Okay.
I'm going to bring this back to physical health.
Okay.
Because I think that's what we can all kind of relate if all the listeners listen to the show. But
Yeah.
your brain is the laziest apparatus, period.
You call it lazy. I call it efficient.
Lazy.
Efficient.
It tries. A great example is if you've never worked out before, and we've all have been there, and you're going to go do something. It is very difficult in the beginning. You're trying to create that mind to muscle connection when you're trying to get those nerves fired in the right order to help. Let's say it's a bicep curl. You're trying to engage that bicep properly while doing the motion. It's very difficult to understand that you're working that area. But over time, your brain figures out the best pathway and then just hits it. And that now becomes really easy. So for those that continually do the same workouts, you see this all the time. It's like, wow, that exercise that used to be hard 2 weeks ago is now really easy. But I went to go do a new one. It's still a back exercise. My back's super strong, but God, that hurt because your brain's not used to it and doesn't have those neural pathways connected to help push it out. This is why it goes into intelligence, the same exact thing. Our brains get very lazy, or whatever you said, or just place it, and you need to just constantly push it further. And this will help you so much down the long run, especially as you start hitting your 60s.
It's absolutely worth saying too that all of these dimensions relate back to each other. Like it's a spider web. They all relate back to each other. Like intellectual wellness has to do with spiritual wellness. You need to know what you believe. You need to think about that. You need to know what other people believe to know what you believe, right? Otherwise, how do you know?
Exactly. Let's go into number 4. What do we got?
Okay, number 4 is emotional wellness. So for people who are prone to negative emotion, and that is, some people are more prone to it and some people aren't, but emotional wellness can be really difficult to navigate. But for me, it's about acknowledging and then managing your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors in a way that allows you to function optimally. So I don't want people to take this as being like, you need to be happy all the time. because that's just not realistic. Life is difficult, and sometimes life is miserable, and sometimes you have no control over any of that, you know? Like, life can be really chaotic and it can really knock you down. And being emotionally well is not necessarily characterized by just being happy. It's about being stable and graceful. So people who, for example, are reliable in a crisis, they're a really good example of somebody who's very emotionally well. So people who can take something difficult, they may not necessarily be happy about it, but they can process it and they can deal with it in a healthful way. That's emotional wellness. So yeah, you need to be thinking positively and affecting coping with stress, and yeah, stable enough so that other people could depend on you in a crisis.
I love the example you gave on that one. If you were all trapped together, everyone's about to die, you have the people that are in pure panic,
Yeah.
and then you have the guy that feels that way, guy or girl, and they can just
Mhm.
take a deep breath and go, all right, this is horrible. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
But, if we do this, we can get out of this situation. It kind
Yeah.
of has to pull the people that are not just standing there frantically pacing and not accomplishing anything, because that's what we need to do. That's what we used to
And
do all the
it's not
time.
happiness. That's the thing. Like, I like happiness, as far as I'm concerned, is a stupid goal. I know that's a strong thing to say, but like, you only need to be living on earth for a few years to realize that life is very difficult. And if your entire goal in life is to be happy, you will fail, because you can't be happy all the time. Like, things will happen to you that you can't control. Happiness isn't the right goal. Competence is. Stability is. Being able to be in control of yourself and to be able to manage even when really bad things happen to you.
And I'm going to add to it a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next one. But I think you can be happy, but when you take hardship, because it does happen to everyone, everyone does get upset. For example, I'm a genuinely happy person, but
Mm-hmm.
I get upset. But what you realize is that it's okay in situations to be upset, and that's the emotional stable part behind it. Where I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to take this, the shock is going to get me upset. It's going to really sting. I might be down depending on how personal it was for X amount of time. But I know overall my life is going in the right direction. And that I'm happy about.
Another good example is when you're having an argument with your spouse, right? Can you have an argument with your spouse about something that you are both very invested in and feel very strongly about, without resorting to histrionics or name calling or throwing things across the room or being very emotional about it? If you're emotionally well, you can deal with contentious things without feeling out of control.
I love that. Great example. Let's move on to the next one. Go for it.
Okay, so the fourth example is social wellness. And this is one that's really topical right now, because social wellness is about having positive and healthy and meaningful relationships with the people around you. And I think we've seen a lot of misery around these COVID lockdowns. And I think that's because a lot of people are really struggling with their social wellness, because even like, I am an introvert. I don't love being around people all the time, but even the most staunch introverts need a support system. Humans are not a solitary creature. Like, I read, there was a Joe Rogan skit. I've watched a stand up one time, and he said it's hilarious how the worst thing we can do to somebody is to leave them alone. The worst thing we can do to somebody, like, even prisoners, the worst thing in prison is solitary confinement. You're locked up with rapists and murderers, and the worst thing they can do to you is to leave you alone. And it's true, because humans, when we're left alone for too long, we go crazy. Like, you need social connections, you need people that you trust. Humans are a social species, there's no way around it. And you need to nurture those connections. And that's your social wellness.
I think this last 2 years was case in point on that one. If you
Yeah.
took mental illnesses and so the actual rates that they skyrocketed,
Mm-hmm.
suicides, depression, anxiety,
Well, it turns
of
out when you
these.
lock everybody in their own home and don't let them talk to anybody, that's not actually good for their health,
I recommend for those listeners, and I'm sure you have, because this is one of our most top listened to episodes, is The Cure
Okay.
Worse Than the Disease?
Yeah.
That came out a year and a half ago, and I'm just going to make one quick point on this before we move on to the next one. But turns out we were right about 99% of it. So go check it out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But moving on to the next one.
Okay. So the next one is environmental wellness. And that's when people say environment, they're usually talking about like the environment, the climate, the globe. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about your personal environment. So your environment in your home, your environment in your office, even your digital environment, like the state of your email inbox or how you're sorting your files, because so much of our environment in 2022 is digital. So how you're dealing with your environment, it's about creating pleasant and stimulating spaces that reduce stress and promote health and happiness and productivity. So
I need to talk about this one.
good.
This one used to be very easy for everybody, and since technology has skyrocketed, is now the hardest one to control. What's my case in point? Look at your phone. When you get a notification and you hear that ding or whatever you have it set to, how much anxiety do you get built up now that you have to go either check that text, that Facebook notification, that Gmail notification, whatever it is? It drives us out of our minds and it pulls our attention. It stresses us out. Can you go 10 minutes after hearing a notification without looking at your phone? That's how you know if this one's stable or not. I had to get that off my chest.
No, 100%. And one of the things that I recommend for your environmental wellness is to turn off all your phone notifications that aren't absolutely necessary. Like you don't need to be checking your email every 3 seconds throughout the day. Email is designed so that you can get it, wait for a little while, and then respond. Not everything has to be done immediately, right? So one of my recommendations for emotional wellness is to just also just having beautiful spaces is also important. Like put some time into making your home look nice. Put some time into making your office look nice. Like a lot of men's offices, they're literally just bare walls. Like I think that's a man thing. Hire a decorator or get a woman in there. But it's a good thing to have stuff on your walls that inspires you and that makes you feel ordered and happy.
Mine's gardening. That's why I get depressed in the cold, because I love being outside, landscaping, gardening. It's like my space. My fiance makes fun of me because my garden looks nicer than my office.
I totally understand that, but it's also just a question of productivity, like you can't get as much done when you're wasting a lot of time in your day trying just to sort out like where you need to start, like planning is actually a good part of your environmental wellness, even having a planner as it is, just being able to have a list and stay on task.
I agree. All right, we got 2 more, right? So
yes, 2 more.
Go for it.
So the last 2, the first one is financial wellness. And again, easy to dumb this down into, I don't have a lot of money, so I don't have financial wellness. But it's not about that. It's about having a healthy psychological and spiritual relationship with money, and an understanding of financial concepts like debt and savings and income. So you need to understand money. You need to understand how it works. And you need to have a healthy relationship with it. So there are a lot of people who have a ton of money who do not have a healthy psychological relationship with money, right? If you are the type of person who gets money and then immediately needs more, that is a sign of questionable financial wellness, because your life shouldn't be about dollar signs, right? So Scrooge McDuck is an excellent point. He's a ton of money. You would think he's very financially healthy, very financially well, but he's not, because he's obsessed with his money and it makes him miserable, right? So that's an example of healthy financial wellness.
Have money, have an understanding where you're spending your money. That's why I like the planner, for keeping track of it. You might be broke because you're spending $5 at Starbucks every day. And if you stop doing that, you wouldn't be broke anymore.
Yeah.
and you don't have to keep checking your bank account over and over again.
Well, you definitely need
That's
to
a great
understand
example.
where you're spending your money. You know, budgeting is really important. If you're having a hard time getting out from under a bunch of debt, then maybe speaking with a financial planner is a good idea, you know, getting advice. So you need to understand your money, you need to understand your financial situation, and um you need to feel okay about it, right?
Yeah, definitely agree. What do we got for the last one?
Okay, the last one is occupational wellness. So that's about your career. So
Ooh, good one.
it's about ensuring that your labor is rewarding and that it's contributing to your well-being instead of damaging it.
I want to say
So
this. I love this. Okay. So I know people, and I've been there personally. You can be making all the money in the world. See it all the time, especially coming from Long Island. People commute 2.5 hours out to Manhattan, come
yeah,
home, 2.5 hour drive back, and they are miserable. But
yeah,
it's okay. I have a nice car, but you don't get to enjoy your life. I have learned at a young age, and I am grateful for it. And I want to give this life lesson to everybody. If you do
hmm
not like what you're doing, stop doing it. It
yeah,
drags down all 7 of the other ones that are going on in your life. It makes your emotional health weak. It makes your physical health weak because you're not doing something you enjoy doing. It's back to that
hmm
financial. You talked about the web, where you can be financially happy. Maybe don't have a 70-foot boat, but
yeah,
like be happy with what you're doing, and you'll learn that life is way more rewarding. We don't need all this stuff that we've been taught
hmm
that we need in our lives. You don't
hmm
need a 3,000 square foot house. Like if it's just 2 people,
a lot of
understand
people
that.
they get on the hamster wheel and they just keep going thinking that that's what's normal, you know, like if you're not moving up, if you're not, there's also a lot of stigma, I think, for people that maybe haven't necessarily achieved as much on paper. Like I get that a little bit personally because I'm a stay-at-home mom. So although I have a breadth of knowledge and I know a lot of things, and I like I've said, I've been a graphic designer for 10 years. A lot of people will talk about stay-at-home moms as just a mom, you know? Like that's what they do. They're just a mom, right? It's just like not really. I've never met a stay-at-home mom who's just a mom. Like that's another thing about the planner. Like I don't like a lot of most planner companies, they focus on productivity. I don't think women have a productivity problem, to be honest. Like if you think about the women in your life, they have a full-time job, whether that's working out of the home or working within the home. I think being a stay-at-home mother is a full-time job. But they have a full-time job, then they're running a side hustle. Almost all of them are running a side hustle, right? Then they have vibrant social lives. They're taking care of their families. They're recognizing significant milestones. They're going to baby showers and bridal showers, and they're hanging out with their friends. And like they're taking care of their own physical fitness, right? Like they're going to the gym. Women, by and large, the women that I know, they don't have a motivation problem. I would say they're overproductive. Like they're almost doing too much. And what they fail to do more often than not is to just take care of themselves. You know, take care of your own health, take care of your mental health, take care of your self-care, do the things that you have to do that's going to contribute to a long life, a long and happy life. I think, yeah, I don't think women have a productivity problem, to be honest.
I know a lot of people, and it's men and women for this one, but they're going to work and it drags them down so much. They're miserable about what's going on at work. They bring
Yeah,
it home with them, and then it
yeah,
affects their relationship with their significant other, and then it affects their
yeah.
physical health because now they don't want to go to the gym. It affects their emotional health because now they're stressed out and they bring everything home. I have said this time and time and time again. I took a giant risk going and opening up a gym, but I got to
Mm-hmm,
tell you, it doesn't matter how many hours. I lose track all the time. I love
mm-hmm,
what I do. It is so rewarding. I enjoy every second of it. I can just walk away and I'm happy. And it didn't matter how much money I was making because I really genuinely enjoyed what I did. And then you know what? When you enjoy something, it doesn't become work anymore. You start having
mm-hmm.
fun while doing it. Everything else in your life gets more stable, and then money will just come. And that's
Yeah.
a huge, huge takeaway of
And
occupational
I will
health.
say, I will say, I want to say something here in that I wouldn't say always that you have to absolutely love what you do because I don't think anybody always loves what they do, right?
I would say just not
But
hate.
yeah, but the key is that what you do has to contribute to your well-being. So if you have a job that you're not necessarily absolutely in love with, but it allows you to do things that you are in love with, and so you can tolerate the job so that you can like even like people like my husband, for example, he used to travel a lot, right? So he was gone quite often, and I wouldn't say that his occupational wellness was very good because he would rather be at home with us. So we were very fortunate in that his job sort of morphed into something where now he's home more, so he didn't have to leave his job necessarily. But I think my husband would have actually been happier as a person if our job at that time was maybe something that he didn't love doing quite as much, but at least allowed him to be home with his family, which he does love, right? So it's not necessarily about what you're doing in your career, but what you're doing for your job, what you're doing for your career has to contribute to your overall wellness. So if doing something that you don't absolutely love doing allows you to do something that you do, and so you're happy with that, that's okay, right? That's fine. There are like I don't know a lot of people who are just like, oh yeah, I absolutely love laying bricks, you know? I love laying bricks. It's my favorite thing, you know? When I was 6 years old, all I wanted to do was be a bricklayer. Like, no, probably not. But
Yeah,
if their job
I
laying
get it.
bricks allows them to be outside, for example, and they love to be outside when they're working, or it pays them a good wage, and so they can, and it's reliable hours. It's 9 to 5, so it fits into their life. They can do other things that they like to do. That's fine, you know. It's about, but you're only happy with your job. What's important to note here is that a lot of people who go for big jobs, big expensive jobs, and they get really busy. Did you know it's actually true that as you earn more vacation pay, you actually take less?
Seen
Did you
it.
know that's the thing? Like everyone, there's this portrait of a CEO that they just sit in an office with their feet on their desk and they smoke Cuban cigars and drink tequila. And it just doesn't happen. You know, like CEOs of massive companies, they work all the time. They never stop working. They don't do anything else. They're hyper successful in a specific field and they typically have very limited lives outside of what they do for work. And although a lot of people would love to have that kind of money, you like don't necessarily fool yourself into thinking that you'd be happy doing that, like in that life. Like
Yeah.
it is very difficult, statistically speaking, it's very difficult for law firms to keep women in their 30s. Women in their 30s, they do great. They go to law school, they kill it, you know? They get to their law firm, they kill it. They're the best in the firm. And then they realize in their 30s that they don't actually want to spend 80 hours a week doing law. You know, that although they've achieved it and they're the top of their field, it's not the life that they want, that they'd rather be doing something else because being at the top of that pyramid isn't everything that everybody says it is, right?
I couldn't agree more. It all depends on what suits your lifestyle
Yeah.
best and how it can
Yeah.
coordinate with all the other seven
So
ones.
even if your day job isn't necessarily something that you absolutely love to do and you live to do every single day, does it contribute to your overall wellness? That's the biggest question.
I couldn't agree more. We're gonna quickly move on though because we were going
Okay.
way over time. But
Yeah. Sorry.
it's all right. Show us really quickly, and for those on audio, we'll just explain a little bit more. But what Creekside Press is, show us the planner real quickly and take a good 35, 40
Sure.
seconds
Okay.
on it.
So
Go
the
for it.
planner, here she is a 16-week undated Sunday start planner. And it's designed to support your wellness throughout the 8 dimensions. So you start, there's some introductory pages, and those are just about creating a vision for your wellness, defining what success in each dimension would be for you, and then creating a plan to work towards that. And then some routines and some SMART goals. I know you love the SMART goals. from a previous episode. I remember you saying that. But then we move into the monthly layout. So in the monthly layouts, we start by defining some intentions in each of the 8 dimensions. So there's just some space for you. Here, let me flip to it right here. There's some space for you here to write your intentions in each of the 8 dimensions. So each of these icons coordinates with a specific dimension, and then you just write some intentions for each of them. So that can be small things, like for your physical wellness, if you want to start meal planning a little bit more, or for your intellectual wellness, if you want to read a book this month, or maybe 2 books this month, whatever you want to do, that's where you would write that. And then there's a vision board. So people do all kinds of stuff with that. It's meant to be a flexible layout. You can use it however is best for you. But I usually create some kind of mood or theme for the month. This is this month for me. So I'll choose a quote and a word of the month and sort of a color scheme, and I'll just go with that just to visualize a mood for the month. And then we've got 2 pages of a monthly calendar spread. And again, undated, Sunday starts. Then we have a mood tracker, which are in these pretty pictures, just because I thought it was more fun than a wheel or anything. But essentially, you just pick moods to track and you put those here. And then every day you come in and you fill in one piece of the mood tracker with your dominant mood for that day. So I can show you one that's already completed. So this was January for me. So that's a good example of what a mood tracker looks like when it's finished.
Yeah, it's just showing you really like how your moods all flow together in the pictures instead of a graph.
Yeah, so
That's
it's
nice
actually,
about it.
although it looks just like a pretty picture, there's actually really valuable data in here, as much as you wouldn't want to believe it. But here, this group of pink over here, pink is what I use when I'm feeling off or feeling sick. So this, when there's a bunch of it grouped together, that signifies a flare-up for me. So I had a flare-up of symptoms on these days. So if I can see that I've had a flare-up, then I can go back to my other trackers, try to figure out what might have caused it. So is it hormonal? Has my diet been off? Have I not been sleeping very well, been working too late into the night, that kind of stuff. If you can recognize those patterns, it really helps you to make changes and to try to figure out where those symptoms might be coming from. And then the next one is a symptom tracker. That's here. My camera. So that's this one.
Really,
and
really in detail.
Yeah, so then you just write your symptoms there and you check off whatever days you're experiencing those symptoms. So there's some basic flex stuff. There's some month in review, so things to start, continue, and stop. Every month at the end of the month, you get a way to grade your wellness. So these are all the dimensions of wellness, and you sort of self-grade how you feel like you were for the past month. So it helps you to do a review before we move on to the next month, so that you know what may be stuff to work on for the next month. If something's fallen off or if something's a little bit low, that's what you need to work on for the next month. So those are the monthly pages. The monthly pages are right up at the front, and then we move into the weekly and the dailies. And so every week you get this 2-page week at a glance, which are to-do lists and a habit tracker. And this is a nice 3x3 inch space. Some people use this for notes, but here's an exclusive for you. I'm also designing some pre-printed sticky notes that you could use here for a chore list or for a power quote or whatever you want to use. You choose a dimension of the week to focus on, and then this is your month or your week at a glance. You can use these for tracking like appointments in your schedule. And then the next 2 pages are for your grocery list, and this is sorted out from the department of the grocery store, and then meal planning.
Wow, really, really just everything you could think of.
Everything. And then the last one that I'm going to show you here is the daily layout. So this is what you're going to do every day. So there's the date here and the day of the week. There's intention, your schedule, your meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a bar to track your hydration. Your to-do list, your top 3, and then the rest. wellness. You can track gratitude, sleep, movement, reading, and active service, and self-care. And then the weather and some space for notes. So that's what's every day.
I absolutely love it. And Jaclyn, just to wrap things up, last 2 questions I ask everyone, which I'm sure you've heard a bunch of times. First one is, how would you summarize this episode in 1 or 2 sentences?
A lot of words. I would just say it's been a good recap of the 8 dimensions of wellness and gives you some tools for how to track them in your life.
Love it. And where can people find you, get a hold of you? And if they want to purchase a planner, where can they go to? We'll also have the link in the show notes.
I'm Creekside Press on everything. So Pinterest, Instagram is just at Creekside Press. I'm Creekside Press on Facebook, LinkedIn. And if you want to buy a planner, you can go to www.creeksidepress.co and you can buy one. There's a flip through of the planner there, so you can see every single page. There's a little bit more about me and my story if you're interested in that. And you could check out and order the planners. They're in pre-order right now because we haven't received them in our Texas warehouse yet. But we're planning on shipping pre-orders in early April.
I love it. And thank you guys for joining us on this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is a journey, not a destination. Until next time. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way. And through fitness, you could do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference.